Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines. In today's video, I'm going to take a closer look at two awesome releases that have come from JC Wings in the past 6 months, both of which feature a really cool addition, which briefly in the 1980s looked like it might become standard on passenger airliners, and that is the unducted engine, the Propfan engine, the UDF, which was fitted to both this 727 and this MD-80 in the 1980s and looked like it was going to be a big change in the way aircraft were powered. Never quite came to fruition, but JC Wings has recently released both of these awesome models in 400 scale, and today we're going to take a look at these two wonderful models. Now, the Propfan engine was designed to combine the best features really of turbofans and turboprops. It wanted to be able to have the speed of a turbofan engine or the power of a turbofan engine, but the fuel efficiency of a turboprop. And you come up with this unique look where you've got these huge extra fan blades external to the engine nacelle themselves, which contra-rotate and push the aircraft along. And the most famous of the engines that was produced was made by General Electric. It's the GE36, which is what you can see here. And this engine started out as a program with NASA, and it grew into the engine which was going to be the power plant for the Boeing 7J7, a short-range Boeing transport from the 80s, which never got built in the end, but also for the McDonnell Douglas MD-90 series as well. And you can see that the engine just has this amazing cool look. Now, the two things that airlines were particularly interested in for this engine was the fact that it would be very fuel efficient, but also that the General Electric design also removed the gearbox aspect, which was something which had always been problematic in jet engines. So it made the engine actually a lot simpler and less prone to maintenance issues. And the engine basically seemed to fulfill most of the requirements of the initial design brief, but unfortunately at that time in the mid-80s it was just not worth it basically for the airlines. There was a lot of interest, but fundamentally fuel prices were so low that they didn't care enough about the fuel savings, the money savings that they'd make on the engine, and it never really went anywhere. But it did get flown on two aircraft in the test environment. One of them is a Boeing 727-100 and the other one is the DC-9-81 or the MD-80 prototype. And those both flew test programs throughout the 1980s, and both of those models have been produced here by JC Wings, and in today's video we're going to get up close and personal with those. But before we do that, don't forget to chuck a like and a video if you're enjoying the content, and subscribe to the channel. As always, really appreciate all my subscribers. Thank you very much. And also don't forget to check out this video's sponsor, Northeast Diecast. You've got a wonderful range of second-hand, very rare often, models for sale at their site. Well over 600 models in 400 scale, plus a load of 200s, some really cool models. So check them out, and if you do check them out and buy something, don't forget to use the code Yesterday's Airlines 15, which will get you 15% off your order at Northeast Diecast. It makes a massive difference, and they do have a load of really cool and rare models. So don't forget to check out Northeast Diecast for 15% off. Use the code Yesterday's Airlines 15. But let's get on and take a closer look at these two recent JC Wings releases. They're both really different, and I love that in 400 scale, producing this kind of diversity. So the GE36 unducted fan engine was first attached to a Boeing 727-63 registered N327-20, an aircraft that had originally been delivered to Fawcett of Peru in 1968 but came back into Boeing use in 1985. And here you can see that the engine was mounted on the starboard side of the aircraft. And here it is on the JC Wings model. As you can see, the aircraft was used for the initial flight testing for the engine, and it first was mounted in August 20, 1986. And you can see that it's significantly different, the mounting of the engine, to that of the usual side engines on a 727, and it's got these huge contra-rotating props on the back. And it's really nice on this JC Wings model, as you can see, is that they do rotate, and in fact they rotate independently as well, though I don't know how you could get them to contra-rotate, but they certainly rotate really freely, and the engine looks super nice and mounts very cleanly on to this standard 77-100 mould that JC Wings have got, but to be honest, don't use very much. It is a decent 77 mould, and the engine looks really good. Now, I should say that the engine is mounted a little bit too high. The pylon is slightly too highly angled up, and the front of the nacelle is not quite perfect, but it looks really, really good on this 727-100 mould, which, as I say, is actually a decent mould, one that we almost never see getting used. I mean, arguably, this is a better 727 than the Aero Classics. And the model here looks really nice. Of course, being JC, they've also got the aerials attached, and overall this is a really nice model. You can see from the top how big that contra-rotating engine is in comparison to the standard engine there, and that's because obviously you need the space for the rotating propellers. But as I understand it, having the contra-rotating sets meant that those prop blades could be a lot smaller than if they had just been a single set of Propfan blades. And then you go from underneath. I mean, it looks so different. It looks kind of wacky, especially when you've got the engine only mounted on one side, but a really nice looking model. And I tell you what, let's get her over on to the turntable before we take a look at her sister, the DC-981. The second aircraft to have the UDF G36 engine fitted was the MD-80 prototype N980 DC, and this aircraft had the engine fitted in 1987. McDonnell Douglas was super interested in fitting a Propfan engine to a possible MD-91 or MD-92 aircraft, and the flight test of this went super well, actually, to be honest. The G36 was fitted at two different periods, and the aircraft was at the Farnborough 1988 show, as you can see in this photograph. And once again, JC Wings have produced a really nice model using the same engine casting from their 727, but actually in this case, rather unusually, using a completely different MD-80 mold to their usual mold. Now, I just reviewed this model at yesterdaysairlines.com, so check out that review if you've not seen that video already. But overall, this is an exceptionally nice model with a great mold, and again, that unducted fan engine attached, but this time to the port side of the aircraft rather than the starboard side, as on the 727. If anything, I think the MD-80 looks even better than the 727 with just the two engines. And again, as you can see, the props rotate nicely, as you'd expect. And I think that the MD-80 here would have worked really nicely with this engine. In fact, I believe at the end of the test program, the G36 engine had a 30% better fuel consumption than the standard Pratt & Whitneys that were fitted to the MD-80, and was completely noise compliant and all the rest. But unfortunately, fuel price is just too low. You wonder if this engine had been being tested, in the early 90s, how much better it would have been. It would have done, and maybe it would have got onto a production aircraft, but the test program had been cancelled by that point. But anyway, again, this is a really nice looking model. I'm really, really pleased with how this one came out. In fact, this one came out better than I thought it would, because the MD-80 mold they're using here is better than that standard JC Wings Gemini MD-80, which has a bit of a questionable front end. So it's a really nice looking model, and I think the UDF works really nicely here. Now, incidentally, I believe that both of these models have actually also been released in 200 scale, and that, I guess, has helped the development cost, because you can just downscale the 200 scale version of the engine to 400 scale. And that is really, really good. JC Wings is a brand which gets a lot of hassle and some criticism for its inability to get models out on time. But to be fair, it is also a brand which has a huge mold catalogue, like this mold, which has just reappeared out of nowhere after about 15 years. And also, it produces some really unusual and interesting aircraft types. So, you know, top marks, in my opinion, to JC Wings for this release. I think this one is even better than the 727. And once again, let's get her up on to the turntable so you have a close look without my fingers getting in the way. Okay, well, that's it for a closer look at this pair of unducted fan, Propfan engined aircraft that have been produced in 400 scale by JC Wings just over the past few months. Hope you've enjoyed this look at these two unique aircraft. It is a real testament to 400 scale at the moment. I think that this sort of model can get produced, models which are really specific, really unique. It has been a big change in 400 scale in the past few years that has enabled these kind of one-off models to get made. And JC Wings has been at the forefront of doing that with some really excellent ideas in terms of how to make models more interesting, flaps down and interactive cargo airliners and aircraft like these. And as you may have seen with their recent Beijing Expo announcements, JC has got a lot of cool and exciting and unusual things coming. So well done to them for these. They're really nice models and they go really nicely in my collection. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you next time at Yesterday's Airlines. Goodbye.